guys, and welcome back to this new video. Today we are going to talk about phrenology. Okay, some of you may know what that is. For the people that don't know it or want to know more, here's the video. Okay, so it's interesting. This is one of my favorite topics ever, I think. Along maybe with Phineas Gage, but anyway, my point is Phineas Gage, whom we talked about in a video on Capgras syndromes. Okay, so let's delve into this. Let's go back to the ancient times. Let's go back to the Romans. Actually, let's go back to the Greek Romans, right? At a certain point in time where I think 2nd century after Christ, we do have a doctor. The doctor is one of the most famous on the planet, Galen. Galen was a doctor who first theorized how the body was working, basically. He said, and this is very famous, there are 4 humors. That's how he called it. There are 4 humors, 4, if you want, substances or fluids in the body. So this is coming straight from the Greeks, basically, as a theory. But there are 4 substances in the body. And it is the balance, or the lack of balance of those substances that makes the character, the personality of a person. For instance, phlegmatic would have more of a certain substance, less of another. Likewise, if you have a bad temper, right, you exceed in one and you lack of other substances, right? So the idea is that if there is a balance between those substances, you get to the place of being, to the place of equanimity, so to the place of being extremely balanced in your emotion, but also in your body, not to have physical ailments, right? Because if you think about it, phlegmatic might have problems with digestion, for instance, right? So that was the theory. Or if you're bad-tempered, you might have problems with your high blood pressure, let's say, or with your liver, right? Because your liver, you're angry all the time, etc., right? So this was the first attempt at systematizing the knowledge that they had by creating the theory that is called theory of the 4 humors. This is not our point, so I'm gonna move on. Part of this theory was that in the left ventricle of the heart there is pneuma. Now, pneuma is the vital blow, right? It is what in nowadays terms would be described as prana, as chi, as vital breath. And in the theory formulated by Galen, the brain had the major purpose of purifying the pneuma. Now, Galen was 2nd century after Christ, lived in the 2nd century after Christ, and since then, of course, medicine had moved on, but not that much. If you think about it, a great deal of ailments was cured through bloodletting, right? And so that was the practice where you would be deprived of your blood so that, you know, the heart had to pump new blood. And so, you know, the circulation would get renewed in your body. Now, medicine had slightly moved on, certainly had moved on a lot in the 16th century, where when studies on the anatomy had started, because people started to go to the morgue and kind of like retrieve their bodies. So all of that had happened, but not major progress had been made in understanding sort of like how to conceive the brain. What would be the purpose of the brain? So we are in the 18th century. kind of like towards the end of the 18th century, we are in 1770, when Gall formulated the theory that the brain, and most of all the bumps of the brain, indicated that somebody had used their brain a lot. So the idea is the following. The brain is a muscle. If you do use a muscle, that muscle gets bigger. And that's why you have bumps in your skull, basically, right? Those bumps are there because that part of the brain got enlarged, got bigger, because you use it more. So different parts of your brain correspond to different function. Now, keep in mind, this is sort of true, right? We do know that the cortex, for instance, has been split in modern medicine in so many different parts, and to each of those parts has been ascribed at least a function. I would argue the point that has been ascribed more than one function, but in order to keep this simple, at least one function. And so we know that if you're hit here, right, then you start to kind of like lose control of your actions, let's say. But is this entirely true? Not so much. We'll get there though. But the point is, different parts correspond to different functions, right? And so if it is like that, then all we need to really know is how to read the skulls and how to read most of all the bumps, right? And this is how phrenology, with a term coined by a assistant of Gall, a guy named Spurzheim, this is how phrenology, in his term, got invented, right? Was invented, elaborated, right? It is the study of the skull in order to understand the personality you have. Did some people took this notion a little too far? Of course they did. There was an Italian scientist, if we might say that, Cesare Lombroso, and Lombroso is extremely well known for his theory of formulating, organizing all the different parts of the skull in order to understand whether or not you were a criminal, right? He went beyond that. He would argue the point that, you know, if you have large eyebrows, you are more likely to be a criminal, right? And if you have like circles, like black circles around your eyes, you would be this type of person, right? So he got to the very detail even of your face, right? To understand what was the likelihood of you being a criminal, of you being a respectful gentleman, and so on and so forth, right? And he also made differences between men and women. For instance, I argued the point that male criminals would have, I think, a lot of hair, whereas women that were criminals had little hair. So all of that was, you know, kind of published, and all of that was known, and we are in the 18th or end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. Now, subsequently, phrenology became more a pseudoscience than a science, and it kind of like lost its impact in scientific terms. However, was never really disproved until this new study published by Oxford University. So this is serious, where of course the new study dismantles the theory of phrenology, saying basically that there is no correlation between the different bumps of your skull and your personality. The theory also was not really confirmed by other experiments before. For instance, experiments on rats showed that if you are missing a part of your lobe, your brain still functions. because of course there are compensatory mechanisms, right? So it's not that one single part has you know, the unique control of that function. For instance, if you think about vision, vision is so much controlled by so many different parts of your brain, but of course, you know, major damages to an area may cause a certain impact. Anyway, the new study published by Oxford University exactly confirmed that. It also came up with some interesting results. For instance, there is a positive association between arousal of sexual desire, called amativeness, and higher verbal fluency. So in other words, if you are eloquent, you are more easily or more often sexually, I think more often, sexually aroused. Or maybe the opposite, right? That eloquence has an impact on sexual arousal. It's not clear what kind of correlation that is. I don't think they also could establish a super direct link, but that was interesting to find out. And in general, though, the theory of phrenology was considered and was proved finally not to be true. Now, guys, I want to know really your comments. So with that being said, I'll leave the comments to you, and if you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we're gonna talk some more next time in a new video. Bye!